So I'm back up at the farm here. It's 3 days before the opener of the Iowa bow season, 29th of September. And Jordan and I are going to go and pull the cards out of these cameras. We pulled one and there was a Jordan shooter on there. So I'm thinking, based on her criteria, that there aren't too many of these that we find on these cameras that aren't going to be Jordan shooters. So we should be in pretty good shape that way. We'll see if there's any bill shooters. So we've got 11 more to go, one down, no bill shooters, 25 Jordan shooters. So we'll see how many we end up with after the next 11. Which makes it way easier for this kind of stuff.
Right.
Because it'd be really hard to self-film otherwise.
Really hard.
Just scalped. At my third camera site for today, and I know some of you have been paying attention to these different locations. This is that spot where the beans got completely demolished during the summer. Planted brassicas in here, and now my brassicas are getting completely demolished. This is the one spot on the farm I'd say has got a super high density. From what I saw pulling the cards out of this camera the past 2 times, it's mostly does. But we're going to fill a bunch of tags here. There's some pretty likely spots for tree stands here that would be pretty easy to hunt. If I need to, I'll bring that redneck blind up here too, because I'd say of anywhere on the farm, this is the high density area. Probably my guess is that the people who hunted here before really focused on shooting bucks and not shooting very many does. And that's probably why we're not seeing a whole lot of older age class bucks, and the buck to doe ratio is tipped pretty heavily towards does. But we'll fix that. It takes a few years, but we'll change that. Okay. Welcome to Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. On today's episode, I want to talk about the best strategies for the first 10 days of October. And we just got back from checking the cameras again on this farm, and that plays really well into figuring out what to do with this early part of October. And we did go back and look at the cards, and I alluded to the fact that there are a lot of bucks or either sex deer on this farm that Jordan would be happy to shoot. Let's say there's plenty of opportunities that are going to be here for Jordan this season. Several more strange bucks popped in, bucks that we hadn't seen before, so that's good. As long as you continue to get new deer, new bucks, you know that you haven't found everything that's there yet, because at any given time, another one could pop in. And they're still moving those, those fall ranges around, or they're settling into those. And I feel like they keep doing that all the way up until about the middle of October. So we still have 2 weeks left where the bucks are going to be settling into those spots. So you may be running the camera right now and think, man, I don't have anything here, but you just have to be patient, because within 2 more weeks, that could all completely change. So I've got still that one buck that we picked up last time I was up here. He's probably the best target. He's moving only in the dark. So right now he's nocturnal, but he's showing up on more than one camera, so I'm starting to be able to triangulate where that deer lives. And that's a big part of what we do this time of the year, I think, is figure out where the bucks that we're going to hunt, once they start moving in daylight, where they're living. So I think he's living, well, you can see it behind me. I think he's living on that ridge behind me, and then there's one off to my left here, and it seems like between those two spots is where I'm picking him up, but it's all after dark or before daylight in the mornings. It's borderline though, so that's why I feel like he's right in this area someplace. He's not too far away. So now let's talk about how I process that. I've got a nocturnal buck, and here we are, the first week of October, rolling into the hunting season here in Iowa. I don't really feel like I'm in the game on that deer. I got some idea where he's living, so if I really wanted to push it, I could go onto either one of these two ridges where I think that he's living and find an oak tree that's dropping acorns and just sit there and hope for the best. And that's not a bad strategy, but we got a lot of season left, and that's just a little bit aggressive for this early in the season. I'm thinking that as we get closer to the latter part of October, I'll press more. I hate going in on bedding areas on bucks this early, because my fear is that I'll push them away and they're going to become daylight active as we get closer to the rut, and I really don't want to put pressure on them right now. So for me, I'd be more likely to pick a different part of the farm, an area that we don't really have a target, and go in there and sit on oak trees, hunting over acorns, trying to shoot does. In this situation, it'd be perfect for Jordan. We could pick a spot where we don't have one specific buck that we're trying to kill, because the deer movement's going to be good around these oak trees. They're definitely dropping acorns. We're seeing a lot of evidence of that. All over the farm I'm finding spots where the acorns have been eaten, and all that's left are the caps. So they're definitely finding them and eating them. So I'd say that's early October strategy number one, is pick your punches. Don't get too aggressive right now unless you have a buck on a daylight pattern. And we do have one here on a daylight pattern. And I'll show you this deer. And it's pretty tempting because he's covering a bunch of ground, but I just think he's too young. I think he's, just for what I'm after, he would be a good target for Jordan possibly. She doesn't have her bow yet and it's not ready to go, so we're not hunting this deer right now. But if you look at all the pictures I've got of this buck in daylight in 2 or 3 different locations on the farm, he's covering a lot of ground. And I do feel like you wouldn't have to try too hard to get an opportunity at him. I would be hunting him around some kind of a more open food source. Like maybe I've got a cornfield here behind me and to the right, and he could be coming into that, which I think he is. I also had a little food plot up the valley that was in beans. I was getting pictures of him there. That'd be a place to hunt him. So that's the second part of the early October strategy, is to only hunt the bucks that are already showing daylight activity. So you can be aggressive and you can go into the bedding areas where there's oak trees dropping acorns, and you can hunt just about any deer on the property. And you can hope for the best. And if you have a ticking clock, like if you only have a certain number of days you can hunt, or it's maybe you're hunting public land, it doesn't hurt to be a little bit more aggressive now. You could do that because they're definitely going to be on those oak trees eating the acorns. So it's a definite viable strategy. But for me, here on this farm with this situation where there's no other people going to bump these deer, I hate going into where I think that bigger one is possibly bedding. I'd rather wait until we get deeper into October. We start hitting those late October cold fronts when he's going to be traveling more. Then I'll be able to figure out a little bit better how to hunt him. Again, I may be on those ridges, but it's going to be when he's more active. When the rut is starting to come closer and he's on his feet earlier in daylight. So just don't be too aggressive, but if you want to get after it, the oak trees dropping acorns are definitely the place to be. And then if you've got a nice buck on a daylight pattern, don't wait, because those don't always last very long, because sometimes they'll be just a few days, and that buck, maybe he travels through. Maybe this isn't his fall range, and he's just on his way through, and he may not even be here in 2 weeks, or he may fall back into a nocturnal pattern fairly soon. And now you know what my goals are. I want to find daylight active bucks, or I want to figure out by triangulating, where I'm seeing these deer, what time of day I'm seeing them, where they're probably living. One other thing, and we'll talk about it in future episodes, but Jordan and I were talking last night about how are we going to hunt some of these ridges in the mornings, as we get closer to the rut, because you got to do a lot of climbing, you got to bump through a lot of deer. But having blinds located someplace strategically where you could just pop in there at dark and sleep, almost like a redneck hotel, pop back out again in the morning and get into another tree stand up on a ridge, that might be a good strategy for us too. We're not sleeping at the base of the tree, but at least we've got a blind where maybe we can have some food and something better than just sleeping on the ground. Okay, so that's it for this week. Next week, we might be hunting by next week. We'll see. Still working on this building. It's going to be big in here. I'm going to walk you through it. So right now, I am standing in the bedroom. Well, you don't see much yet, but hopefully the bedroom. There's going to be, this one's going to be 8 foot by 12 foot, and then there'll be a hallway running off the side of the main part of the house or quarters. Then this will be the bathroom. I think it's going to be 6 feet by 8 feet. So then that will take up 14 feet of the 36 feet. And we'll have a wall, and then kitchenette and cupboards, cabinets, everything along that wall. As we progress through here, you can see the rest of the room. Now we're getting into the living room. So there'll be like a table where we can eat and work. And of course, someplace in this corner, we're going to have a sofa and a television over on this side. And of course, those are going to be critical components because who wants to be here for the whole fall and not watch any football, right? So keep watching. Hey, even if we don't kill any deer, at least we're going to have a comfortable place to stay. And we're making some progress there. I really enjoy that, but we gotta kick that into full gear because it was 30 degrees this morning and we were sleeping in that shed, and it sure would have been nice to have some place that was a little bit warmer than that. So we're gonna get that thing done, and then we're gonna be back to hunting or get into hunting here pretty soon. Well, I appreciate you joining me. We'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails, and remember to always dream big.